Hey everyone, thanks for listening to Tickets to Travel, the only podcast that talks about the business of travel experiences. In today's episode, you'll meet Jon Allen, co-founder of TKT. Jon has spent his career in the ticket reselling industry for live events, as an early member of Ticket Network to working with ticketing technology provider Logitech. As a co-founder of TKT, what exactly is TKT? TKT is the go-to for European and UK live events combined with personalized hospitality services. You can enjoy prime seating options, exclusive hotel stays, and VIP experiences. With TKT.com, expect 100% order fulfillment and round-the-clock customer support. Jon is also an active member with the Coalition of Ticket Fairness, which focuses on the rights of ticket resellers. We will get into all things ticket reselling and understand the demand from international markets to package their live event tickets with travel. So stay with us and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, because Tickets to Travel starts now. Hey everyone, this is Mario Bedwine with Tickets to Travel, the only podcast that discusses the business of travel experiences. On today's episode, we have Jon Allen. Jon, welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
So I have to ask you have a tremendous background in resale ticketing and ticketing in general. Do you remember the first ticket you ever sold that got you into this business? What show? Where was it?
So, boy, you white kid, you said you were going to catch me off guard.
I told you.
So yeah, it's a funny story.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be.
Yeah, so just like where I met my wife, I was in grade school.
No way.
Yeah. And in grade school, it was a small school, private school, because I wasn't a good kid. So my parents had to try to straighten me out. They would give away tickets for a minor league hockey team in New Haven, Connecticut called the Haven Knights. So me being who I am, I'm at lunch and I'm looking at everybody's ticket and they say $5.50 on it. You know, here I am, a 14-year-old kid, and I'm saying, geez, they're giving away $11 to every student. How can I make some money off of this? So at lunch, you could buy a snack for $0.25. Jesus Christ, I'm dating myself. So I'm like, most of these kids are just going to toss these tickets. They don't care. So I go and I sweep my father's garage. I forget what I did. And I ended up making a $10 roll of quarters. And for 25 cents, I'm offering every kid a snack for their 2 tickets. So at the end of the day, I ended up with probably 50, 60 tickets. And I go down to the New Haven Coliseum and stand in front of the box office, save $1. 2 for 10, right? And here I am now, 14-year-old kid, come to school the next day with a wad of 5s and 10s. My mother's like, are you selling drugs? I'm like, no, I swear to God, Mom, you know, I'm making some money. I'm buying these tickets. So I whip out my wad of cash the next time they do the ticket giveaway. And the teachers look at me and go, oh my God, how much money is there? Like, oh, $500-$600. Wait a minute. What? That's more than I make in a week. So, yeah, that started my illustrious career in the ticket selling business.
Got it. So it's sort of the equivalent of nowadays, you know, these kids who do stuff online where they're buying, whether it's sneakers or collectibles and then flipping them for something bigger. But this is even better because on tickets, you have all this demand that comes in, right, for a specific event. And as long as you control those tickets, you can kind of charge whatever you want for the most part. When did you sort of formalize this as a career that you said, you know what, this is something I can continuously do? Or was the hustle always there and you just started picking up new and new events from venues?
Well, the hustle was obviously always there. I mean, the name of the game is hustle, right?
Right.
Like if you're not working harder than the next person, you know, you're never going to get it. But I was fortunate enough to meet pioneer in the industry who created the first point of sale for the industry and the first exchange. I graduated from the minor league team to the major league team, which was in Hartford, Connecticut.
Nice.
And I saw a gentleman out there, he had a small stack of season tickets, and I kept bugging him, get away from me, kid. till he finally came and he gave me a pair of tickets, which I quickly sold. And at the end of that night, he was giving me all his tickets to sell. And that guy turned out to be a gentleman by the name of Don Caro, who was the founder of Ticket Network. That brought me into a whole other, because that introduced technology into the industry. So instead of some guy standing on a street corner with a trench coat saying, "Come here, I got a bunch of tickets, buddy," it turned out to be like more mainstream, frictionless transactions using the internet.
Part of the basis of this show is really how online travel and entertainment ticketing haven't been merged at scale to a certain degree. There are certain people who are in that space. So, I don't want to date you too much, but what do you think was the big sort of transition in terms of online ticketing or just with technology? Was it, one, the internet, obviously, but two, was it more mobile ticketing, you think, or any others?
Mobile ticketing certainly helped. But I mean, once the internet came, geographic boundaries fell. Originally, we would do everything retail, so there were no marketplaces. We mainly relied on traditional marketing, such as, telephone books, radio ads, so on and so forth. Like, we were the ones that really pioneered going outside of our own market, because traditionally, late 80s, early 90s, it was called a concierge type business. I know a guy, which was based on their geographic location. So you had a guy that, did New York. You had a guy that did Boston. And there still is some subset of those resellers out there that still have that white glove concierge type service where, they don't want to go on the internet, not know who they're actually buying the tickets for. If there's an issue, they want to be able to pick up the phone and talk to an individual. I guess that's the long way of telling you that the internet really started to change things. And then, the digital aspect of delivering or fulfilling the inventory really kicked it up a notch. Now I've actually listened, I did a little bit of homework. I listened to some of your podcasts, and you guys kind of hit it on the head. Now it's evolved to more of an experience than it is an actual just buying a really expensive ticket off of StubHub. People have now know that we can get anything, anytime, anywhere we want, but what's the enhancement, right? They're really looking for experiences. And I might be jumping too far ahead, but that's more prevalent in the international side of things, because even though their technology is antiquated, their mentality is a little bit dated, they're more forward thinking on, how do I make it an experience from the lowly guy that buys a GA to the high roller that sits in an executive suite?
Yeah. So when you say that, and I don't mind going there already, you're talking about the teams, the leagues, the venues who have the primary tickets or through their primary ticketing system. And there is a bit of legislation or laws internationally that sort of prohibit a secondary ticket or a resold ticket. Is that true? This is what I'm sort of finding out from my research, in that you need a package of some type.
It's a tricky question, right? Because what constitutes, a package or additional value? So it could be something as simple as VIP entrance and exit, free cocktail hour party, or as detailed as post-top concert or event, the photo op with some of the stars.
Right.
So, but I mean, they had already had this idea with a lot of specifically in their football teams, where they had lounges and more experience orientated type packaging with their events, but they're still missing a lot of some of the nuances that we've been able to build on in the US, specifically like data, pricing, distribution, all that stuff. We're more advanced than they are over there, but it's gaining ground fast.
And so this is a little bit about what you do at tkt.com, right? Maybe this is a good time to sort of explain your new endeavor as to what part of the market you serve and what you're trying to do for the industry.
So a lot of what I do is based on my own personal experience, right? And I'll be remiss to say I'm not the greatest at obtaining inventory for high profile events in the US, right? But my kids think everything should be front row. Money doesn't matter.
A bit spoiled. Yeah.
Yeah, they're spoiled, right? So this all stemmed, the travel portion of it anyways, from an experience I had specifically with Taylor Swift. So we had figured out that it was actually cheaper to go see Taylor Swift for her entire family, to see her overseas, as it was to go to the next town over. Right. Here in the US, the tickets were 5 times what they were going for in Europe. And my kids are like, we want to go. Specifically, my grandkids, that's how old I am. How are you, your grandpa, you're going to get us the best seats, right?
No pressure.
Grandpa loves you, but I don't think I got 30 grand in my back pocket, kids. But let me do some homework. So I found a venue overseas, and I'm like, Jesus, not only can we make this an experience to take the kids and the grandkids to a Taylor Swift show, but we could turn this into a vacation. Like, geez, okay, twist my arm. I got to go to Paris to see Taylor Swift. Oh God, it's just going to be terrible. And geez, it's only going to be about 1/5 of the price that it is here.
But wow. So you did the math, and it's about 1/5 for, like, what is it, a family of 4 to go? It would have been.
Well, just to put it in perspective, what we were paying $5,000 each in the US was costing me about $1,000.
Wow.
So it was a pretty significant savings. But this is where you kind of really get it. So although that sounds fantastic, the actual process wasn't very frictional, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are some companies that are building to make that a more attractive experience. But it was like, okay, let me go find a hotel. All right, let me book a flight. Then I have to secure the tickets. And how do I wrap all this into one itinerary? How am I going to pay for this? Now I got to book the room over here, book the flight over here, pay for the tickets over here. Excuse my French, no pun intended. It was kind of a freaking nightmare,
Yes, totally.
There's got to be a better way. I started talking to a very, we'll call him an intelligent travel expert. And he's like, look, I could show you the way. So some guy named Mario started showing me some products that seemed to fit the bill. Not quite there yet, but it seems like you guys are the individuals that are working on this or get it, right? Which few do. Just like the ticketing industry over there, the travel industry, super antiquated, right? They're still operating on stuff that was 10, 15 years ago. Ideally, if I had a magic wand and I could do everything, I would make it so that I could book my tickets, my accommodations, my travel all in one process, right?
Right.
And not only does that make it a better experience for the end user, the consumer, the venue, the team, the lead, it also creates a true experience for the consumer, right? Cuts down on a lot of the headaches. I got to check on this person for the travel. I got to check on this person for the tickets. How do I organize this group to go to this event? Who's got the tickets? What name is the hotel under? Are we on the same flight? Where are we sitting on the flight? Who's watching the starting those little grandchildren when we're away? So that is really what TKT is looking to solve. We have it with the experience part of it, meaning the white glove concierge packaging of the tickets in said experience, whether that be VIP entrance or pre-conference photo op or post-conference meet and greet or high-level suites or mid-level lounges. But the travel is still that missing ingredient. That's what we really are hoping, knock on wood, to solve.
I think there's some solutions coming, but I mean, let me unpack a couple of things here. So you are probably one of the direct people I've heard the story, the Taylor Swift story from, in terms of the pricing and creating an experience not in the US. I think most people don't realize that she injected an extra $5 billion into the economy when she did the 2023 Eras Tour here, which, by the way, she doesn't get a piece of. It's just sort of the effect that happens. And so the challenge being is that you're right. the systems itself, from a travel perspective or a ticketing perspective, are not completely merged. And there's a couple of reasons for that. But what I'd like to ask you about is, why do you think on the ticketing side, why is it so hard for them to understand the various technology pieces to make it easier for, let's say, a giant travel company to consume that ticket? I think there are parts of it that make sense on the resale side, but on the primaries, the actual ticketing systems, they haven't made a whole lot of strides into, hey, let me get a direct connection to be able to get access to all of the, let's say, Expedia guests or fans who would also like to buy that. Why do you think that is?
A couple of reasons. Number one, education. They don't quite understand the industry and how it works. Monopolization. There's larger forces that want to lock out competition, which everybody knows competition is better for the end user. And it is work, right? Like you're driving a train, right? It's not easy to stop that train and shift to a different direction. I think a lot of these guys are happy and they're making tons of money. They don't want to invite competition. They spin this negative connotation of the resale business. But if you talk to to consumers, the end users want the ability to have access and transferability of the inventory that they're acquiring. So I think a lot of factors lead to why this isn't as accelerated as it is, but I do believe it's going to get there because the more education you put out there, like this podcast, right? A lot of people don't even understand, like they're actually creating their own headaches because if you're not fully integrated with these resale markets, and these resale tickets are going to have, there's a gap between who's coming into my building, how did they get these tickets, and any customer service issues that are derived from. So even an old fat bald guy like me still has issues with sometimes downloading the ticket on their mobile device, right? My kids can do it in 30 seconds. I still fat finger around. If I go to the box offices and there's an issue, they're looking at me with, who is this guy? Where did you get these tickets? We have no records.
Right.
But in actuality, if there's full integration, which there is in a lot of the resale markets in the US, they solve that issue right away because they can track where that ticket originated from. It's a valid ticket. This is the hiccup. They know that that transaction is a true transaction, not some felonious, dark web transaction, whatever. So I think the more that the consumers, the industry, the primaries understand that this is better than just allowing one or two entities to control everything, you'll see these barriers break down and people be able to go out and expand competition, which will drive down pricing, which helps with a more frictionless experience, if that's a good definition.
Yeah. No, it's a very tech. See, you're not that old, John. That's a very technical answer. You mentioned the primaries, but also it comes down to the rights holders, right? It comes down to the owners of this sports team, the leagues, the artists, the promoters themselves. And so how does that play into it? Because I think that there's a lot of interesting sort of back and forth. One, what's a ticket broker versus a ticket scalper? I think some of these primary systems have various definitions for that. And what that connotation kind of means. I know where maybe you could tell us where it came from and what the idea was, since you were reselling tickets at 14. But
boy, you really are making me feel old.
No, but what I'm saying is I think that the rights holders, the venues, all of these guys have a responsibility to be a little bit more transparent about how the business works, because I think everyone gets really passionate and angry when they can't get that Taylor Swift ticket. But what about those games in that same arena where they're not selling the upper half of the arena because it's, I don't know, the Washington Wizards against, the San Antonio Spurs, who are horrible, right? So no offense to any Spurs fans out there, but I don't think there's a firm understanding of how the ticketing business works and how that the primary ticketing system and the rights holder sort of control that to a certain degree. And to be honest, from what I gather, they actually like resellers, which is probably not what Live Nation or Ticketmaster want to put out as a message. And I'm pretty sure you do some of this work, CTF or the Coalition for Ticket Fairness. The Tickets to Travel podcast is always brought to you by Expo Travel. Expo Travel is experiences optimized travel, assisting B2B startups and companies with business development in online travel and entertainment ticketing distribution. If your company is looking for ways to boost revenue, increase average order values, or activate your member base with either travel or entertainment ticketing, contact the team at Expo Travel for a consultation today. Visit xpotravel.com. That's xpotravel.com for more information.
So a little history lesson. Season tickets originated by mom and pop shops actually distributing them physically, right? So you go way back to the 20s and 30s when baseball was at its heyday. You actually had these guys that were runners, right? That would have physical hard copy tickets, and they'd bring them to their neighborhoods and they distribute them that way. That's how the season ticket base grew. Fast forward to modern times, the teams and leagues would gather their own database of season ticket buyers. But what they found quickly was that the majority of those season ticket buyers weren't going to a full 82 games like you're explaining. You know, they were taking the majority of their tickets and they were reselling them to not monetize, but sort of like release them from some of the financial obligation of having to buy 82 games a year. They've quickly said, geez, this is a tremendous resource suck on our infrastructure. Well, instead of giving it to 10, 12,000 fans, that 60% of them are reselling them anyway, why don't we give them to the 6,000 fans that are going to go to every game, not really reselling them, and the other 4,000 or 5,000 to 2 or 3 individuals that have, multiple distribution channels that will actually share some of that revenue of the resale back. That launched in the U.S. what we called consolidation. So you consolidated a lot of their fan base into bigger resellers that had more insight to the values of what fair market were going to actually pay for the inventory.
I see.
So that was where the teams, leagues, and venues started really buying into this, because now they said, okay, instead of John Smith buying these 8 field boxes, really to only use 4 and sell the rest and make money and so on and so forth, I didn't know who was going to be into the venue. I didn't receive any proceeds from the resale of those tickets. And every over year, those consumers changed, right? Then the resellers started getting super sophisticated with the internet and being able to really use technology. I'll use the buzzwords, AI
and
right?
bots. Yeah.
They're able to capture more content and individuals that were looking for inventory. I'll revert back to internationally. So like internationally, when I started delving into that side of things, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe international will be a different distribution channel and I could sell a bunch of cheap tickets. Found out real quick that it wasn't cheap tickets that were selling. It wasn't a ton of them. What ended up happening was we caught a specific market of people that are going on quote unquote holiday,
right?
That were spending thousands of dollars to travel, that didn't want to sit in the upper deck, right? And didn't mind spending larger sums of money to have the best seats in the house.
The experience.
So it was another experience play. So that kind of was like something that we just found out probably in the last 3 years, that there is a big market for transcontinental travel, for people going back and forth, buying our events over here and vice versa for events over there. So there's the industry's, again, I'm very long-winded with it. The industry is always evolved. If for better or worse, resellers, entrepreneurs, they've always been better at being nimble and adapting to these trends. So now you have team, league, and venue that can focus on the core concepts of what they do, operations, maintenance. They don't need to fragment their ops team to worry about how they're going to find more, excuse the French again, asses for their seats, right?
Right.
They can focus on the experience aspect of their product. They can focus on maintaining that brand integrity and not having to worry about, how do I squeeze out more revenue on my existing ticketing database. For better or worse, again, these entrepreneurs, the resellers, are really good at being nimble and finding more ways to distribute that inventory, mainly with technology.
Yeah. So what you're saying through all of this is one, that technology has come a long way. The international markets, those venues, leagues, and teams in Europe, for example, they're starting to evolve. I always say that they're probably maybe 10 years behind in a lot of ways, if you think that's accurate. And now the timing is right. So now you've got these post-COVID, obviously, you've got a ton of demand that is for every type of live event, essentially. And now you've got people who are willing to pay the price, which when you compare it against US prices, it's still a deal. And so be able to pull these systems together and then, of course, market them in the way that you're discussing and sort of how entrepreneurs find a way to get it done. I think it's a perfect storm. I think that travel experiences led by tickets are going to be very, very scalable over the next 5 to 10 years, depending on which players sort of get involved in it. I mentioned one thing earlier about what the difference is between a ticket broker and a ticket scalper. What are your thoughts around that? Because I know that there's always this sort of connotation from a primary, and there are certain large companies out there who basically battle, I suppose, with resellers, but I don't think it's very accurate. And so I'm just curious what your take is, because obviously there's some bad eggs or bad apples in the bin every once in a while, but how do you, as someone who works with the Coalition for Ticket Fairness, and this is some of the arguments that come back, how do you describe the differences?
A reseller is above board up front. They're knocking on the front door. Anybody that's using any type of technology adversely, such as bots, like you mentioned earlier, to me, that's a bad actor. So one is a good actor, somebody that's going to be very truthful, upfront, source their inventory correctly, not using any bad technology, for lack of a better description,
Sure,
to obtain inventory.
cheating.
Yeah.
Guys who
Right?
cheat.
Yeah. I don't like cheaters. Right. But the reseller community as a whole, they're pretty above board.
Right.
It's only a few bad apples that spoil the bunch, right? That's why, one of the things that the Coalition of Ticket Fairness is against is bad actors.
Right.
Because they give us a bad name. Like, for the most part, resellers are a great resource in both distribution and in content, right? They're not bad people. They got skin in the game. Over the course of many, many decades, some of these guys have built up goodwill, white glove, concierge treatment. They understand their clients' needs. You can pick up the phone. Some of these guys, I don't want to mention any names.
Sure.
But I knew a guy last night who was at his daughter's wedding that was answering text messages because there was an issue with a transaction. Like, there's guys that go out of their way to help the consumer, the end user, because they know that if they do a good job, think like old school mom and pop organizations, that client's going to be loyal to them and come back to them. Unfortunately, you do have some people that still try to make a buck any way they can, and it's not something that a true reseller does, right? So to answer your question, the way I define a reseller, and I don't want to call them scalper, but a bad actor, is how they're actually transacting. A reseller is transparent. They're abiding by the guidelines. They're providing information. They're being open and transparent. And the bad actors are doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing, taking advantage of a crack in the system.
Yeah, I appreciate, I don't mean to be derogatory in terms of saying, hey, ticket scalper versus ticket broker. I think that there has been some even marketing against what a reseller is. And I've known over the past few years that there's a pronounced difference between what is being marketed when there's let's say a TikTok fan who gets upset that they can't get their tickets and they're curious as to why it costs $5,000 versus the business as a whole functioning a certain way, where all rights holders, they don't sell out every single game and they need the extra help, the extra marketing to consume those tickets and also to just keep the seats filled so that it looks great on television or that the teams are motivated to play. There's all these different factors that I think the resale market sort of contributes to, but there are some larger companies who sort of define it a different way. And so along the lines of the Coalition for Ticket Fairness, what is the actual mission? Because obviously there's big players in this world that are maybe going in front of Congress soon or have. What is the position overall, if you don't mind?
Well, let me digress for 1 second, because I did not really mention something about the venues that don't sell, right? Because there is a large portion of events that don't sell out, and where resellers come into play is they actually have some skin in the game. They'll buy inventory that doesn't sell out, and instead of losing 100% of the revenue, a lot of times they'll sell that inventory below face value, which nobody talks about. But there is a significantly large portion of ticketing inventory sold to consumers below market. That's not from the primaries. That's not from the venues. That is solely from these resellers. Because rightfully so, the primaries, the venues, they don't want to water down their brand, and drop their floor. So why would I buy season tickets when I can wait till the last minute and get great seats less to face? So there is a very significant, and I forget the number, but it was in the tens of millions of dollars of inventory year over year that sold below market outside of mainstream primary facing distribution sources. So it does help venues, teams, leagues, not only maintain a brand, but also the end users getting a discount on inventory. Now, back to the Coalition in Ticketing Fairness. The message is really simple, right? You buy a ticket, you own that ticket. You should be able to do whatever you want with that ticket. In most industries, unless it's some sort of life-saving type of product, there is no regulations on something you buy and what you can do with it, right? When you start doing price controls, we'll call it, it's never a good thing. It never ends up being a winning plan.
Are you referring to, like, let's say, dynamic pricing on the primary?
Yeah, I mean, I could cite several, specifically Taylor Swift, right? There was a reason why so many people got shut off for Taylor Swift. Because as the primary is trying to catch up with the demand, they're dynamically pricing the tickets, right? Slow rolling the sale of that inventory and not allowing people to get through. I could show you multiple testimonials, people that look, the day off of work, I missed my final exam. If you just told me how much the tickets were the day they went on sale, or gave me a different resource to obtain that inventory, I just would have did it. It wasn't worth the headache to me. You guys just made this experience awful. I didn't want to go to the show anymore. But getting back to the actual message of the Coalition of Ticketing Fairness, right? We just want free and transparent transferability of that inventory, right? Mario, you buy a ticket, God forbid you come down with COVID. You want to give that ticket to your Uncle Bill. Why do you have to get permission from the primary to send that ticket to Uncle Bill? You paid good money for it. You own the freaking seat. You should be able to do whatever you want with it. You should be able to rip it up, burn it, give it to your cousin, whatever. You should not be dictated by the primary who you paid the money to be able to distribute that inventory to whoever you want. Which again, I'm not really picking on any one person, but the more controls that you put on, the less helpful it is to the end user, right? Competition breeds better price, period. If you lock it down to only few individuals to be able to determine what you can do with that ticket, it just creates more stress and demand. And unfortunately, it opens up a black market because no matter what industry it is, I mean, look at, for example, Ozempic, right? Ozempic is wild right now. You're sick, you can't get Ozempic, but you can go to your health spa down the street and sign up for some package and pay $700 a week, and they're giving you the pin.
Right.
Right.
That's a good comparison. You're right. That's exactly what it is. They're just pre-buying inventory from whatever pharmaceutical company. They get a doctor to prescribe it, and they can mark it up to whatever they want.
Right. So I didn't want to make this about the CTF, but it is one of my passions because unfortunately for me, I'd probably be much more wealthy, much more successful, but I like to help people. I don't know. It's an inherent.
No, it's not a flaw. It all comes back to you in the mix. And really that's what we're doing here. So don't feel bad because there's not enough education out there. So if I'm an online travel person who's building a new technology and they're trying to decide, hey, should I go to a primary system and do that integration, or will I get the same quality of inventory through a reseller API or a different type of technology? And the answer is it's probably about the same. There's no really different. It just depends on where the pricing lies for you. And you'll have to make that decision as the technology building that type of packaging engine or that type of engine in general because essentially you become the reseller of the ticket, right? So no, I think that's all very interesting. And I think it's important to separate that from primary ticketing sort of marketing and what organizations like CTF does. In terms of the experiences, again, though, you believe that there is definitely a demand for an online ticket plus travel type of engine, especially coming out of these international markets. Like you've actually had conversations with venues and teams and leagues about this.
Oh, they want it. They want it bad. I mean, so do I. I mean, look, if it would have made even though the experience on that show where I took the entire family, it would have been so much more delightful if I was able to combine the entire transaction in one place. Like that would have made my day. Because I mean, who's outsourcing an Airbnb? Who's out looking for, a flight that we can all get on together, book together? It was a bit of a cluster trying to combine all factions of that trip. But no, I mean, I personally would love if somebody could seamlessly integrate travel with tickets. I just think that would make a much more delightful experience for the end user.
I believe that's true as well. I typically like to end the podcast with our guests to go over what they think would be the perfect travel experience. So whether that's a music festival, a concert, any type of ticketed event, live event with a destination, because essentially that's also part of the experience, right? So what about you, Jon? Where would you like to go? What type of live event would you like to see in some exotic location or not?
I'm a bit of a foodie, right?
All right.
I would love to go to a location, maybe in Spain, maybe in Italy, that can offer me some cuisine that I'm not used to. But more specifically, football. Like I've become a big fan of, we call it soccer over there. They call it football over there. It's almost like a religious experience. So I would love to find a combination to where I can go book my travel experience and my ticketing allocation all in one spot and be able to share that with my family. That would be my ideal.
Which team do you support? I mean, the World Cup's coming.
I can't say because I have to be ambiguous as a salesperson.
Right. You're agnostic, Man City, Man United, or La Liga, right? You're in Spain. Probably a Barcelona guy. PSG.
The Real Madrid with Mbappe, right? But yeah, I mean, to me, it's not about a specific football team, but the actual experience that surrounds that whole proposed trip.
Got it. So you would get a foodie destination, possibly Barcelona in Spain, and love to see a derby of some type where they would be at one of these amazing stadiums, and that hopefully you've sold the ticket and added the hotel in that destination. That's amazing. Well, Jon, thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. I think we covered a lot of interesting topics to educate the online travel and ticketing distribution industries. So until next time, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The Tickets to Travel podcast is always brought to you by Expo Travel. Expo Travel is experiences optimized travel, assisting B2B startups and companies with business development in online travel and entertainment ticketing distribution. If your company is looking for ways to boost revenue, increase average order values, or activate your member base with either travel or entertainment ticketing, contact the team at Expo Travel for a consultation today. Visit xpotravel.com. That's xpotravel.com for more information.